Welcome to episode 635 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Ben Hilton, and I'm just like you, pretty bummed, pretty disappointed. This was a really early start time, the earliest of the season for Barcelona. It was an early one for me. I worked last night, so I'll be totally honest. I was pretty gassed by the time I finished the preview live stream on YouTube before the game even started, and then by the time the match actually even ended, I was pretty exhausted on Big Up as well. And to watch that, I felt as fatigued, I think, as the team does look. Barcelona in a really bad way right now. Las Palmas certainly came to Barcelona and ruined the big party that we'll talk about with the first headline. But yeah, this is a disappointing result from Barcelona. And I usually don't start with the stats, but those stats are pretty unacceptable. 26 shots to 5 for Las Palmas, 8 to 3 shots on goal in favor of Barcelona, who had 71% of the possession to 29%. They had over 600 passes to Barcelona at 88%. And for the number of times that they even got to the corner flag, 7-0. You got to win with those kind of stats. It means that you weren't clinical, you didn't take advantage of your opportunities in front of a goal, and there was something that was wrong with this team today. So while we talk about what's wrong with Barcelona, what would be right with you watching this video would be subscribing. Of course, I know that's a bit corny, but hey, subscribing to the channel, give me a good rating on the podcast apps, or hey, it's the holidays, so getting a Barca fan in your life, some Barcelona podcast merch, would be a great help. All of that is down in the description below. Again, helping me out with both Patreon and the merch store when Barcelona are doing well and when Barcelona aren't doing so well. It helps me continue to make these, again, in good times and bad. All right, let's dive in. Here are the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 2-1 loss to Las Palmas. Headline 1 is 125th anniversary. I wish this headline were longer. I really wanted to focus on the big party and the big occasion. I was going to even use this headline if Barcelona had won to go into some history and come up with some questions. But now it looks like I'm going to have to put all that off to another time because Las Palmas certainly ruined Barcelona's party. The introduction of the mascot, Cat. I really want to talk about Cat. It seems like a lot of fun, but that party was ruined. The rivalry that I want to see between Gavi and Cat, again, I want to have fun with that. So while the debut of Cat was ruined, there was not a debut, but an appearance by Pablo Torre into the starting lineup. That was really the big change, and I liked the starting lineup. People might question it later, but because of fitness issues, Inigo Martinez was even questionable for this match. Dani Olmo was pretty much all but ruled out in the day before, and Lamine Yamal, of course, was not 90 minutes fit. Gabi still was 90 minutes fit, but hadn't started against Brest midweek, so he started in this one. And I thought the 11 that Hansi Flick went with was the proper 11 that he should have gone with. And I think the one surprise with that lineup wasn't necessarily the personnel, because I really agreed with the personnel that Hansi Flick went with to start this match, with who was available and what you knew about the rotations, and again, who was healthy and who wasn't, who could go 90 and who couldn't, who played against Brest and who didn't. I think that the 11 that Hansi Flick went with was one that you could trust. The only thing that was interesting to me was that Fermin Lopez was starting through the center, and it was actually Pablo Torre coming out on the left. And what was interesting about those two starting together is that they both did kind of operate in the half spaces. So Lewandowski, again, was a little bit stuck on an island, but that being Las Palmas was kind of forcing Fermin here into this space out wide. They were forcing Torre to continue to kind of stay wide. And even though Balde is in theory supposed to get forward and Torre in theory was supposed to drop in, it didn't really work out that way. Even Rafinha, Las Palmas were defending in such a way by dropping into that 4-4-2. And no, it wasn't 5 at the back, but dropping in so deep with that 4-4-2 that they had to, that being Rafinha, play in between the lines. But Las Palmas also, to beat them, they were going to have to drag somebody out here. Because then the minute Koundé got forward, here came Las Palmas there on the counter attack. So you understand how the idea on paper to have Torre on the left and Fermin Lopez on the right didn't really, and by right I mean in the middle, and then coming to the half space on the right, it didn't really matter because they were looking to take advantage of the half spaces. But the problem is, you see how they're all right here in the middle of the field together? Well, if the close association of that front four was better than it was today, Barcelona would have had chances. But they just were not sharp enough on the ball, and that was a major problem. Headline 2 is not a sense of occasion. That's kind of what it was. Barcelona were having this big party, and the team itself didn't feel sharp enough. They didn't feel up to it. Was it the early start time? Something was out of rhythm. Something was out of rhyme today. And Las Palmas were up to the game, though. Having, I guess, watched the same tape that Real Sociedad had given them and that Celta de Vigo had given them, Las Palmas came in with a proper game plan. And you can wonder if teams have figured out Barcelona. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think the offside trap still worked to good effect. We'll talk about how Las Palmas scored their goals, but I don't think there's any major tactical shifts that need to happen with Hansi Flick. I think this team needs to get healthier. I mean, I think they have to consider reinforcing some kind of depth in January. How they do that, I don't know, but they have to consider some of that because this team has a huge fall off from position to position around the field. And I think because Barcelona were not sharp enough today, the tactics that Hansi Flick has said, even with the starting 11, I thought he got right, just couldn't be enacted. Because Las Palmas, again, we're up to this match. And we can ask bigger questions of that as to how Las Palmas kind of knew what Barcelona wanted to do from the jump. 4 minutes in, former Barca boy Sandro Ramirez got himself to the touchline. His shot cross hit a teammate, but also could have deflected anywhere. He had a long run that came after he nutmegged Inigo Martinez. Hey, sometimes that happens, though, with skill. The stars of the game to start the match, at least, were the goalkeepers. The first offside against Las Palmas came in the 8th minute. And Morero, also an early star in the game. He's really dangerous when he has time on the ball. I did talk about him on the stream on Big Up, if you want to go on to Big Up and check that stream after the fact on the replay. The fact that Morero, I don't know. He would be a good pickup by Barcelona. It seems like he would want to come to Barcelona, but that number 10 position, that's one of the only spots on the field where Barcelona seem to have any depth. Hence why in the last few weeks they keep starting two number 10s together in Fermin Lopez and Olmo. And in this match it was Fermin Lopez and Pablo Torre. They have Guy Fernandez sitting on the bench waiting to make his first team debut, waiting in the wings. There's Keem Junet, who I think is a number 10 at the top level and not necessarily a winger. So there are other players in the academy also willing to play that number 10 position. And I think that Barcelona, more importantly though, due to what we'll talk about throughout this match review, fatigue, I think, might be a problem. There are questions. I don't think about Lewandowski's form. I don't think about Rafinha's form, but I think fatigue certainly looked like it was affecting both Lewandowski and Rafinha in this game. If I were to give them an excuse, other than that they were just kind of bad in this matchup. I know Rafinha had the goal that we'll talk about, but overall, they just weren't sharp. 11th minute, Las Palmas caused some confusion in the box. The attack broke down when Melero fouled Gabi. That was a matchup I was looking forward to. Gabi and Melero, they know each other from youth teams with Spain, and they're a bit friendly with each other. Get with, I'd say, Pedri being an intermediary there, because Melero and Pedri are friends from their time in Las Palmas Academy together, and I think they likely have all seen each other out and about or had dinner or whatever it is. But yeah, Melero and Gabi on paper looked fun, but this matchup in totality was not decided by that matchup at all. 17th minute on the free kick, Lewandowski was offside anyway. Gabi tried the bicycle kick, so it could have been a really special moment to celebrate that anniversary, but instead, Vidi went down like he got hit pretty hard, but Gabi either just brushed him or hit the lower leg, also didn't connect on the bicycle kicks. So there really isn't anything to talk about there, except that Barcelona, in the early going, struggled to keep possession, even though they had the possession number. I know I'm using a lot of air quotes today, but there's a lot of technicalities in the way I'm talking about it. They didn't have possession, even though they had the possession number. That means they didn't really have control. And they were also struggling with the late runners from Las Palmas coming in the box, which does tell you that teams have kind of figured out how to not only have a good opportunity on the first counterattack, but also if they're able to win that second ball, bring late runners in the box, and Barcelona do have a hard time picking them up, and that could also be a fatigue issue as well. That could also be a chemistry issue that you have a different double pivot with Marc Caicedo having been suspended for this match. Headline 3, I know we're already at headline 3 and we're only in the 23rd minute, but this is a major headline that has to be talked about. Bad luck for Balde. 23rd minute, as I said, Balde gets hit in the throat, really struggling to get his air. Shoulder right in the neck from Sandro Ramirez, and Barcelona forced to make an early sub. On came Gerard Martin for Balde, which, while Gerard Martin was not a net negative in this game, I thought if there are a few players that could potentially hang their head high today, it would be Gerard Martin. He wasn't poor. He also didn't really add too much, but he was still a drop-off from Balde, who I thought was very promising to start this match, and just adds width a little bit better than Gerard Martin does with his legs as opposed to with a cross. Gerard Martin doesn't necessarily win it with his legs, and Balde also had that speed to get back, and I thought Sandro Ramirez against Balde was a matchup that Balde was going to win, and that Gerard Martin didn't really win. Again, Sandro Ramirez also scored that goal. Fermin, I want to remind you, unfortunately for him, he only has one goal this season. It came against Red Star. He has to get on the board in Liga. He has to start scoring, and he has got to have a goal contribution positive effect on Barcelona at this point. He knows that. You could feel like he's pushing for it, but again, he was not sharp enough, and neither was the other attackers. Rafinha, as I said, not too sharp in the first half, and I think there's a difference between the right ideas and the right execution. I think Barcelona and Lewandowski and Rafinha had the right ideas, especially even in the first half, but the execution was poor today, and that can't happen. That's why I said they won the shots, they won the possession, they won all the metrics that mattered except for the score line. Same with Lewandowski, get most of that bad mojo that I'm talking about in the first half, then carried over to the second half. 36th minute, Gavi slipped. Javi Munoz on the counter. Some warning shots for Barcelona. 42nd minute, this is a much better ball from Rafinha. He waited until he was surrounded by yellow shirts to then release it. But Koundé, not a sharp day for him either. I could say that he was just as poor as Lewandowski and Rafinha. Couldn't control the pass, skied it over. 44th minute, Pedri's shot stopped by Cillessen. Rafinha offside on the rebound. Still not working for Barcelona. And then an extra time for the first half. Gavi wins the second ball, feeds Rafinha, hits the crossbar. Up to that point, Barcelona's best opportunity in the first half. And that gave me some optimism there for the second half. So I want to just tell you where I was at that moment going into halftime. I think everyone was in a funk because of that injury to Balde. Really disappointing. Fortunately, at halftime, the news came that he was going to be all right. It looked like he was convulsing. Was he vomiting? Not good for Balde, but the news came that he did go to the hospital, and whether it was a little bit of swelling or something, or he's dealing with concussion, we know that he's going to be all right, which again was positive signs that hopefully the team was relayed that information because they certainly looked shell-shocked from that injury to Balde. Headline 4 is the Lamine Yamal effect. He came on at halftime. We were wondering when he was going to come on and how fit he was. So Hansi Flick, I think very wisely, while he pulled Pablo Torre, I would have pulled Fermin Lopez. I also understand why you kind of keep the runner in the game to work off of Lamine Yamal to kind of get yourself kick-started. I also think that Fermin Lopez is a little bit better on the press, which is what Hansi Flick was wanting to do to a Las Palmas team that had, at that point in the game, had less than 25% of possession. So, hey, continue to go after them. Or 30% possession, they had less of it. So go after them on the press. Fermin Lopez, in theory, his skill set is going to complement Lamine Yamal's a bit better. So you pull Pablo Torre, who, as I said, I think deserves to stay in that match more than Fermin, more than Rafinha, more Lewandowski. But hey, that's how it worked, and I understand the switch. What didn't work was that Barcelona, soon after Lamine Yamal came on for halftime, conceded the 1-0 to Sandro Ramirez. In the 49th minute, Las Palmas score on the counter. Again, it's the former Barcelona La Masia boy, Sandro Ramirez. It has been about 10 years since he played for Barca, but hey, credit to the Canaries, though. I give them more credit here on this goal than I do actually say that Barcelona were bad. The Canaries played out of the back all the way from their own goal line. Credit to them. Munoz, a one-touch, bypassed Pedri and Gavi, and then Rodriguez switched the ball out onto the wing to Sandro Ramirez. This is a picture-perfect counter from Las Palmas all the way from their own goal line. I will say Peña didn't close down the angle fast enough, and Inigo Martinez didn't close down the space for the shot quick enough. It's a little bit of blame on both of them. They both should have done better, and this probably shouldn't have found the back of the net. I give credit to Las Palmas basically until the shot came from Sandro Ramirez, but hey, what are you going to do at that point? Barcelona still had 40 minutes plus to find a way back. 56th minute, Hansi Flick still not liking what he's seeing, down 1-0 at that point, so Ferran Torres, De Jong, and Fort all on for Koundé, Fermin Lopez, and Gavi. We know that Gavi couldn't go 90 minutes, so he comes off. Again, Fermin Lopez and Koundé were not net positive, so try something different. And the something different was actually a terrific response from Barcelona. When the subs came on, did kind of shift the game in a really good way. Ferran Torres, Pedri, De Jong, all helping to win the ball back, and then here comes Lamine Yamal, because this is the Lamine Yamal effect. Spacing-wise, things all changed. From a tactic board that I showed you in that first half, things all changed once Lamine Yamal was out on that right side. So that whole defense had to bring that extra midfielder and that left center back over to where Lamine Yamal was. Everybody taking that step or two, which opens up a step or two in the middle of the field. And that leads to Rafinha's goal in the 61st minute. Second defender, again, shading Lamine Yamal's way. It goes Pedri into Rafinha, into that center pocket, and that's all the space that Rafinha needed. He lined it up with the touch, got some power behind it to beat Cillessen. At that point, again, I was optimistic because now at home, all the momentum was in Barcelona's favor, and it looked like they had finally figured something out in that match. But as you know, the final score of the game, here's the spoiler, that Barcelona, as much as it looked like they had something figured out, unfortunately, they didn't have it figured out. Because headline 5 is a Canary ate the cat. Credit to Sid Lowe here with the headline. He said it at halftime on the ESPN broadcast, so I want to give credit to maybe the smartest English-speaking mind in La Liga over the last forever. It is Sid Lowe, so he comes up with a pretty catchy headline that I'm going to borrow here with Canary eating the cat, because that's exactly what happened. Barcelona debuted their new mascot named Cat, and the Canaries came in and looks like they flipped the switch a little bit here. 67th minute, the 2-1 comes. Fabio Silva, it's a goal on the counter. So for as much as those who were saying it's Fort over Gerard Martin, there's a little bit of pushback on this goal because on the counter it comes, yes, but Barcelona, they didn't initially cut out the counter. They were defending 3v3. They got to where they needed to. Nico Martinez and Fort and De Jong, and that should have stopped this goal from happening, but Silva got goal side of Fort on the run, came into the inside shoulder. It was also a really class first touch. Fort was close enough to him, but because he got that inside shoulder and the first touch was good enough, he set himself up and scored. Inaki Peña probably should have done better on this one too, but it happened in a flash. Not defending Inaki Peña, but again, it's just a really good goal by Las Palmas. So I will say that while Las Palmas did score 2, and I would try, I guess, to discredit the defense of Barcelona on the counter a little bit, I don't. I think these were 2 good goals by Las Palmas, but Barcelona should have scored at least 3 goals in this game. That's where I think the problem is, and that's where I think where the loss lies. Still, Barcelona, with extra time, had about 30 minutes after that goal was scored to find another one or the winner, but it just wasn't happening. The 70th minute, Barcelona inches from their second, close association, finally some bright signs between Rafinha and Lewandowski and Ferran Torres. And for those who want to criticize Ferran Torres today, I think you should take a ticket for some of the other players in the squad, because I thought Ferran Torres was also kind of positive in this game. Because that move then goes out to Lamine Yamal. Somebody almost got to it. Another shot came moments later for Rafinha. And I thought Ferran Torres, while he didn't score in this game, obviously, or anything like that, and he didn't even have a really good chance for himself, he was making space for the other attackers in ways that I didn't think Fermin Lopez did throughout most of that first half. 79th minute, Lamine Yamal got dragged back. Torres scored, but he was very offside, but they pulled it back anyway for the free kick. And that ensuing free kick, Cillessen had to punch Rafinha's shot over. There's a really good stop by Cillessen. Again, more credit for Las Palmas. But at that point, again, Barcelona, you feel like they should have got one of these. The dark arts from Las Palmas, I tend to root for Las Palmas because it's one of those cultural areas that is similar to Barcelona. There's a lot of Barcelona fans on the island, including Pedri and his whole family. So I'm a little disappointed in Las Palmas here with these dark arts. 8 minutes were added, though, so it's not like the referee were ignoring all the dark arts. And Pau Victor late on in stoppage time, coming in for Gubarcy, along with Las Palmas attacker Ali McBurney. And Victor did have an impact in the game. He was probably brought down in the box late. And if that earlier knock on Gubarcy, you saw the bloody ankle, I think it was a bit accidental between him and Mika Marmol, just getting their legs tied up. But hey, still, VAR could have looked at that. That could have been something that went Barca's way. It didn't. We can argue about it later. But the Pau Victor one, if this happened in the 10th minute, I think it's a penalty. I think there was enough on that to have brought him down that it's a penalty in the 10th minute. And you know what I say. If it happens in the 10th minute, you got to be consistent. So it happens in stoppage time, it's a penalty. So I did think that was a penalty. But I do think because it was so late on the game, ref didn't call it. VAR didn't go with it. And there was so much added time already. I mean, maybe the ref said, hey, Barcelona, because it's stoppage time and they're down by 1, Pau Victor went down too easily. Maybe that's a VAR thought. I disagree. That happens. 97th minute, Pau Victor also did a really good job with a run late. Lewandowski's shot was blocked. Story of his day. So the big picture here, this is the first home loss of the season. Barcelona are definitely in a bad way at the moment. It's also the first time they have lost to Las Palmas at home in Barcelona since 1971, to take the gravity of this loss and why I think there are some people who are fairly saying, hey, La Liga, I don't think Barcelona are going to win anymore. I'm obviously not going to say that in any way, because while Real Madrid do have those 2 games in hand, and they can take a 2-point lead on Barcelona if they win both of those games. So that win against Real Madrid in the head-to-head, it could pay dividends late in the season, but if Real Madrid do the winning they need to, then it could come down to El Clasico again, which is not a position that Barcelona would want to be in any way. Barcelona have now picked up 1 point in their last 3 games in the Liga, so 1 out of a possible 9 points. That cannot happen if you want to win the Liga at this point in the season. You can't drop those points, especially to the teams that are not in the top 4 in the table. Regardless of the names, you can't drop points like that. Because I said Real Madrid, very much now control their own destiny. And I also want to say, unfortunately, that for all the criticism of Kylian Mbappe, Real Madrid also are in a position, as they always are, to play better in the spring. That's what they do. We know that's who they are. And when they start to pick up points in the spring and start to become that steaming locomotive of we win when we play ugly in the spring, it's not going to look good for Barcelona. So I'm still optimistic for Barca. For as good as the start of this season was, it was the top of the mountain. And now it looks like this Barcelona team under Flick are fatigued, they're not in form, they're not sharp, and they've hit their valley. So there's still a lot of season left to play. They're in a good spot in Europe. They're still leading the table, and Real Madrid still have to win the games that they have in hand to catch Barcelona in the table. So all of that to say, I'm in no way hitting or smashing the panic button, but this last month in November have not looked very good. They look like a tired team, and getting Lamine Yamal back fit and healthy would be a good thing. Figuring out how to reinforce the squad in January, getting something out of Ferran Torres, continuing to get a better level from Gerard Martin, having things go their way, all of the things would help Barcelona. It would also help me a bunch if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel, as I always say, and also watch me on Big Up. Not many people are watching me on Big Up, so I want to remind you that I will have all these matches streamed on Big Up, and I do the YouTube live stream preview beforehand, so you can join me for those. Join me on Big Up. That would be a grand help for every match coming up this season. And that's as soon as Tuesday, where Barcelona will be facing off against Mallorca. So not much time in the turnaround for Barcelona, which is not good for a team that's fatigued. But again, it's good for you, because you can easily make a note for yourself to remember to join me for the watch-along Barcelona against Mallorca. Again, that is Tuesday at 1 p.m. East Coast time, 7 p.m. local time in Barcelona. So I do hope you join me there, where Barcelona against Mallorca, yes, it's on the road, but again, that's a team that get the result in the Liga, but Barcelona have an opportunity to figure things out in a hurry in Spain. So again, I understand all the tentative attitudes towards this game and the frustration. Totally get it. But as always, you know what to say. We've been saying it for 125 years. Yeah, I've got some gray, but I'm not that old. So while we'll say it for the next 125, as always, Forza Barca.